It's totally. I'm such a book nerd. I'm really excited to be here. So when I was originally invited, I know about the format that you guys have, and all of that was shared with me. And I also have a 9th grade son who in Mrs. Lawrence's class, and so I know how they do the book talks and stuff. But I figured I could take advantage of the fact that I was invited, and I wanted to talk about something slightly different while still giving you some ideas about some books to read. So I know that you have tons of books to read here, that you get book suggestions from other members of your class and from your teacher who's reading widely, and you can see people reading all around the building. But sometimes you just need something else to kind of give you a push or like catch your attention in some different way. And one of the places that I've been finding a lot of great books lately is on Instagram. I follow a couple, and I would bring my phone, but you can't get to Instagram. It's blocked because of our network. But although I'm sure you guys know ways to get around that, but we won't say anything about that. If you're interested, there are a couple different groups that put together some great recommendations all the time on Instagram. One that I follow, they also have a website, is called We Need Diverse Books. And another one is called This Is YA, so like young adult, this is YA. And then there's Book Riot. Those are the top 3 that I follow. And they, several times a day, will post really attractive covers and new things coming out and interesting like book talks that authors are doing online that you can find and stuff like that. So anyway, but I liked We Need Diverse Books because I'm always looking for something a little different. And this highlights authors who have diverse backgrounds. So it may be racially diverse, it may be a religious issue, it may be physical issue. People may have different disabilities or different mental health issues that they personally have, and so that is reflected in their literature. Or they may actually choose to have their characters in their books be in diverse settings or have diverse backgrounds. So I've read some of the books that they highlight, but because I had like a month's lead time, I then went out and sought out some books to talk to you about. Now, I'm not going to book talk every single one of these, so you guys don't have to worry. But I did want to highlight some of them just to kind of throw the titles out for you and give you something you might be interested in reading. Okay, so I'm going to start with what I read last night. Well, actually, I wanted to remember to tell you something. So, not every book is for every reader, right? And there's a famous librarian, if there are famous librarians, but there is a famous librarian whose name is Nancy Pearl, and she's in Seattle, and she has what she calls the rule of 60. If you get to page 60 and you don't like it, don't waste your time. Okay, not every book is for every person. I personally don't make it to 60. I make it to about 30. If a book is not right for me, it goes. And I try not to give up on a book, but really not every book is for every mind. So, and the reason I wanted to say that was, I've been working on this book, Shadow Shaper, for about 5 days. Okay, and you can see where my bookmark is. Every night when I go to bed, this is what I read, and that's how far I've gotten. Yesterday at my son's swimming lesson, which was started at 7 o'clock at night, I picked up everything, and I finished the whole thing last night, okay? This book clearly was for me. This book I will persevere because it has some things that are interesting in it, but it just was not catching my love. It was not catching my attention. Having said that, I do want to tell you that this book, Shadow Shaper, which is by Daniel Older, is about Sierra, and she lives in an urban setting somewhere, it doesn't really say where, and she's hearing parts of conversations, and she's seeing things change in her environment where she lives, like, that other people don't seem to notice. Like, there are these huge murals that are painted in her neighborhood, and they're starting to fade, and no one else sees it, but she sees it. And then one day she notices that one of the murals that actually depicts her grandfather has a tear running down its face that wasn't there before, but no one else is saying anything. And she starts to hear things about something called shadow shapers, which is the title of the book. And she has to try and figure out, without really asking, what shadow shapers are and whether she is one. And if she is one, does that mean that her life is at risk because they're fading? Everything Everything by Nicola Yoon. I clearly loved this book because I devoured it last night. And it's about a girl whose name is Madeline. She happens to be half Japanese, half African American, but that doesn't really, as is the author. No, having said that, the author is not half Japanese. She is Jamaican. I'm sorry, I'm confusing that with another book I'll talk to you about in just a second. But Madeline has something else that makes her really different. She was diagnosed with an illness that basically it's the bubble boy syndrome, where she's allergic to everything. And the house that she lives in has these special air filters, and she really only sees her mother and her nurse, who watches her around the clock. And let me just read you. And then a new family moves in next door, and that's how things start to change for her. I wanted to read this. This is, one of the people who lives next door is named Oliver, and he goes by Ollie. And he says, "I've decided baggage carousels are a perfect metaphor for life," Ollie says from atop of the edge of a non-moving one. Neither of us had any checked luggage. So you can see she's not in her house at the moment. All I'm carrying is a small backpack with essentials: toothbrush, clean underwear, Lonely Earth Maui guidebook, and The Little Prince. Of course I had to take it with me. I'm going to read it one more time just to see if the meaning has changed. And it's called Everything Everything by Nicola Yoon. Awesome read. I wanted to highlight El Defo, a graphic novel. I really, really like graphic novels. This one is called El Defo. It's by Cece Bell. And she got a lot of awards last year for it. One from the Schneider Family Foundation that likes to highlight books by about physical disabilities. And also, I don't know if it was a Caldecott or Newbery, but she got a lot of awards. One thing I like about graphic novels is I feel like they're kind of like surround sound. So you get the story, but you also get the pictures, and the pictures bring the story up, just like in the theater when you have a really good sound system, and it just brings something else to that story that you're watching. This is about Cece, who at a young age is very ill, and she loses her hearing, and then she gets something called a phonic ear to help her with her hearing, and it's almost her superpower because she realizes that she can hear things that other kids can't. Because sometimes the teachers forget to turn off their part of the phonic ear, and it's just it's a funny book. It is, Cece Bell, the author, is actually deaf, and she's been asked why she depicted all of the people, who are clearly people in the book, look like rabbits, and she was asked why, and she said, well, because of the ears. She wanted to like highlight the fact that people's ears stand out to the world. I don't know, it's about hearing. It's a great story. This one really had me for a long time. It's a very fast read called Full Cicada Moon, and it's by Marilyn Hilton. And this is the one where the main character is half Japanese and half African American. It's set in 1969, which was the year I was born, so a very long time ago when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And the main character is really fascinated with space and science and astronauts. This is the year that the astronauts first land on the moon in July of 1969. And so that's a really important thing that keeps coming back in this story. I wanted to read. So this starts out, she's on the bus, because they're taking the bus all the way from California to, it's either Vermont or New Hampshire, I can't remember which, where her father has just gotten a new position at a university, okay? And she's filling out the forms for her new school. I'm stuck at the ethnicity part. Check only one, it says. The choices are white, black, Puerto Rican, Portuguese, Hispanic, Oriental, other. I am half mama, half papa, and all me. Isn't that all anyone needs to know? But the form says all items must be completed, so I ask, other? Mama pushes her brows together. Check all that apply, she says. But it says just one. Do you listen to your mother or a piece of paper? I check off black, cross off Oriental, and write Japanese with a check mark. It's Full Cicada Moon. It's by Marilyn Hilton. And I wanted to mention, I brought a couple books that technically are a little young for high school. And when I say that with quotes, because this one is really aimed at like 6th through 8th grade. This one that I love is really kind of a 6th and 7th grade book. I think that we're at a point with reading where who cares what age it's aimed at? I mean, I'm a grown-up. I almost exclusively read young adult stuff. And this may be, say, a 5th grade reading level technically, but if you're a thoughtful reader, you get more out of it than just the words on the page. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like this story called Small Acts of Amazing Courage, it's by Gloria Whalen, and she's a Michigan author. She often writes stories that are set here in Michigan, historical fiction. This one is set in India, when it is colonized by the British. And it's through the eyes of a girl who's about 5th grade. And all of the people who are really closest to her and take care of her are the people who are Indian who live in her house in India. But her dad is a colonel in the military, and all of their friends in the society that they associate with are British. And you see this world through someone's eyes who's, I guess, kind of fresh, and she just sees people for who they are instead of being worried about kind of the society part that her parents are. And because she's able to do that, the main character, she meets Gandhi. It's fiction, but the author leads you through that she's taken to this meeting where these important people are speaking. She meets Mahatma Gandhi, she hears him speak. She understands why, at this time, the people in India really feel like they should be in charge of ruling their own country instead of being ruled by people whose queen is thousands of miles away in Great Britain. It's called Small Acts of Amazing Courage, and it's a fabulous read. It's short, it won't take you long, but it's one that I read probably 8 years ago the first time, and it stuck with me. And that to me is the sign of a really good book. Okay, quickly, because I'm taking way more than my 5 minutes.
You're fine.
Brown Girl Dreaming is actually a biography by Jacqueline Woodson. You may have heard of other books that she wrote. She wrote Locomotion. She wrote a book called After Tupac and Dee Foster. She's written a whole bunch of, there's a book called Hush that she wrote. This is autobiographical, and it's also written in verse. Oh, I should mention, Full Cicada Moon is written in verse also. It reads really fast, and it's deceptively simple. It's a great, a lot of authors, this is kind of a new old trend, that's something that's coming back, is authors writing, not in rhyming poetry verse, but writing kind of a freestyle. And this is about Jacqueline Woodson's life, being born the grandchild of sharecroppers, and what her parents really wanted for her, what her dad's side of the family wants for her, what her mom's side of the family wants for her, and what she ends up doing. And she ends up being a famous author, but I wanted to, this is her grandfather talking about the civil rights movement. This is the way brown people have to fight, my grandfather says. You can't just put your fist up. You have to insist on something gently. Walk toward a thing slowly. Be ready to die, my grandfather says, for what is right. Be ready to die, my grandfather says, for everything you believe in. And none of us can imagine death, but we try to imagine it anyway. That's Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. And then, okay, another one that stuck with me for a long time. This book is called Trouble. It's by Gary Schmidt, who has had a number of Newbery Honor books. He wrote The Wednesday Wars, if anyone read that. Lizzie Bright and the Buckminster Boy. He wrote a new one called Orbiting Jupiter that, oh my goodness, you have to read. Write that one down. Orbiting Jupiter by Gary Schmidt. I'm not kidding. I am not a crier. I do not cry at movies. I do not cry at Kleenex commercials or whatever. I cried at the end of that book, and my daughter, who's a 7th grader, I warned her when she took the book from me. I was like, it's sad. She came down sobbing, like snot and tears, and it is And I figure that any book, any author that can make you feel like that about something you've read, and that's a short book, has got something.